So today I am going to talk about voicing, and I tend to go out of the way and I tend to talk too much at the beginning. I'm afraid of running out of time. So I go straight through my topic, and if we still have time left, I would like to add a few things in each chapter. I have 60 minutes, correct? 60? Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, I will start sharing my slides. And can everybody see this? Okay.
Yeah.
So, voicing. Activate the skill of listening. So I will talk about activate the skill of listening, and then cultivate, and then develop. But all throughout the topic, everything I will talk about today is for the wish of helping students to have a good skill of listening. That's the only purpose. Everything I talk about, I'm aiming to that goal. I would like you to know about that. That's also the conclusion of my topic today, actually. So, how to activate? Play recordings of several orchestral works, preferably 2 or more examples of the same work, in order to hear and define differences between interpretations. Start with obvious examples, such as woodwind solos within orchestral works, then expand their listening and experiment by observing more complex examples, e.g., more than one instrument playing. So now I would like to share some recordings. I picked today Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov. I just personally love this piece, and I think that presentation of woodwind, all instruments, they're pretty spectacular and also very clearly placed, very effectively composed. My personal opinion, I love Rimsky-Korsakov and Ravel's orchestration, and I think it's also beautiful music, so it's good for young students to hear. Okay, so I picked 2 recordings played by the same conductor who I love, Valery Gergiev. One is with his own orchestra, Mariinsky Theater, and another one is with Vienna. If we have more time later, I'll come back and talk about it. So, next, cultivate the skill of listening. So So now we start transforming onto piano how to develop the skill or cultivate first. So I composed this simple theme, 2 measures theme. Play a simple short theme with legato, that's very important, and with dynamic expressions, also very important, in order to make legato as well, and imitate it in different registers. So you start with and you go everywhere and try to maintain that crescendo diminuendo, kind of a little bit exaggerate way so they can really clearly hear. And so on. Then play the theme as a 2-part counterpoint with a separate voice on each hand. So you create sort of like canon, and etc. You can do many different register to experiment. Oh, sorry, I want to go back there. So the purpose of doing this is to train the polyphonic skill of listening, really separate each line, following each line separately in the ear, which is not too easy because I think we're so used to favoring a voice when we hear some music and not paying too much attention to the rest. So so train that gap by doing this. And next one as well, play the theme by both hands in various interval. So you start with the octave, you play this simultaneously. Third. I recommend to go very slow so they can really follow. Even the seventh. And legato helps to follow the horizontal connection. And so on. Create a simple accompaniment of triad chords. So I play the theme here, octave higher. So you just then you develop the accompaniment to any form you want. But you try to maintain the legato in the right hand. By the way, I'll talk about this later, but the first accompaniment form after the chorus, I held all notes in order to create more the harmony, the sense of harmony to the music. So the Alberti bass, that's called, and I didn't even use a pedal. I don't know. I hope you can hear this clearly through the microphone. Is the sound okay? Piano sound clear?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay,
Nice.
good. Okay, good. Thank you. So, what was I saying? So, if you really develop the sense of hearing the sound individually, actually create, although it's creating harmony, but harmony is a group of individual notes, and yet it shouldn't be separated, it should be together. However, it should be carefully curated together so it makes perfect sound as a harmony. So for instance, just playing a triad chords, it's not so easy for people who's still developing their hands, very small hands, and so then you can let them play by the right hand or even two hands. It's even better. And try to let them really activate the ear to hear that this is actually do, mi, so, the three notes, rather than just, automatically gravity took you down and sound happens. You hear that very often, actually, that not so much care to the voicing. So simple arpeggio spread through both hands and experiment with the balance of the notes. So the arpeggio, you hear very often at people aim to the top voice. It's, you know, many things involved. It's also technical issue as well. But the main thing is that they try to favor the top voice, but it never sounds good for the arpeggio because it's the last note happening. So ideally, if you can make crescendo diminuendo sort of like vertically, you make this louder, then come down. It sounds most beautiful. So you kind of guide student to hear that carefully in individual note when you're holding down the pedal. And another challenge there, I'll talk about it in the next topic as well, is a pedaling. I'm sure you agree. How many students come with a new piece and can pedal properly when they have a large arpeggio chord? Most of them miss the bass because they're so busy changing pedal according to the melody. But it's so funny, but actually the pedals should be with the support, the accompaniment, the harmony. But very often you hear like they're not catching the bass, and it's again, it's not the technique of finger or foot. It's simply this listening that is lacking of a careful listening. That's why it's happening. So this can train that as well, and that's a huge benefit, and goes long way, all the way actually. Once they get it, they get it. You don't have to teach it again. So create an accompaniment with broad arpeggio with pedal, which I just did in the left hand, and you play the melody. I play melody octave high again. So, and let them really do the work, was pay good attention to catching the bass with pedal. Really try to hear the harmonies changing. So I heard that there will be question session later, but I'd like to stop here and ask if there was anything unclear. I can see there. Is everything okay so far? Okay. Okay
Perfect
then.
for me.
I continue. No, this one. Okay. Oops. So now we move on to develop the skill of listening with various repertoires. So, Bach invention, polyphonic skill of listening, imitate the expression, character, touch, articulation, dynamics, balance, lower register is louder and sustains longer. So it's sort of like we did earlier with that made up canon, two boys counterpoint. So you play the theme in certain register and another voice comes in different register, and it's just very different. It requires careful listening to maintain the same character. And I'm not saying that every theme comes back has to be in the same, exact the same, because it's different. However, I think for this music, the character should be consistent. And it's gonna be good practice for students to be aware of the instrument nature also in the articulation. And it comes the listening part, the listening orchestra works, that how beautifully those soloists phrased that solo bassoon and oboe, and then took time freely here and there without stopping the music and things like that. I think those things, you know, if you keep playing and if you keep kind of guiding them to activate, to hear certain ways, it's literally cultivate little by little, and it becomes their self, sort of like not like skill that they learn, but something that they grow with it. I believe that very much. Haydn sonatas, polyphonic concept in harmonic structure. Harmony changes with suspended notes and resolutions. So that actually, I have to say, this polyphonic concept in harmonic structure, or harmonic concept in polyphonic structure, in Bach's music is a lot. This suspension, suspended note and resolution, absolutely gorgeous in Bach's music. But from my own experience, so many students kind of pass through the beauty. I think it's Bach's music beauty is there. So it's very useful skill, useful awareness for them. I played the D major sonata slow movement, which has tons of suspended notes. So I let them stop and hear that harmony with a suspended note. And let them hear this, the beautiful harmony. So in real life, in faster movement, there's not time really to stop and enjoy the sound. However, if you're aware of the beautiful sound, it changes one's play. It's really happening with the young students. So this is really worthwhile to let them explore. Contemporary pieces with dissonances give special care to the augmented interval. There are so many wonderful contemporary pieces nowadays that you can introduce to a very young pianist, which I find it's wonderful to be exposed to out of tonality at a young age. So there would not be a rim of, you know, classic harmony structure, but they're very open. I think it will cultivate the open hearing as well. So the augmented interval, when they have you know, like diminished things like that, to really find out what note is conflicting to each other. This is not so much, but here a lot of tension, and this also. So voice carefully to really emphasize that conflict would make a beautiful sound rather than missing that, you know, conflicts and then bringing out certain voice, top voice. But so I'm sure I'm not going to have enough time for that, but this involves a lot of, legato making techniques. So there will be always an argument. I try not to touch there, but Bach's music should be played without legato, should be played without pedal. I'm just talking about how to practice here, so it's not the performance. I always try to avoid any confrontation. It's okay. Everybody believes different things, but when you practice, I think it's very important to learn how to do the legato well in order to learn all the things I was listing. And the definition of legato, I will talk about it in a symphony, and now we're moving on to the definition of legato is a lacking clear attack, clear punctuation. It's not that your finger is holding the key or not holding the key. It's all about, again, sound, how it sound. So the training that invention with a complete legato really brings a lot of benefits to students. Okay, so before Sinfonia, the secondo of the four-hand pieces. Good voicing for the accompaniment, played by both hands. No need to bring out the top voice. So I call this the pianist syndrome, that we always have to bring out the right hand pinky. We get trained that too much, and it just became automatic. Schubert Fantasy for four hands. It goes like that. So start with the secondo, and then often the students bring. Well, thank you for your effort, but that's really useless. When the melody comes in, it just it becomes a fight. So even the very advanced pianists, older students, and they tend to do this. And even melody comes in, they don't notice sometimes because they're not develop the skill of listening the whole sound. They may develop the skill of listening their own sound and a very direct feedback from the piano, even not including the acoustic. But so that also lets them practice. It's very good material to do the four hands. So now comes cream on top. Bach's Sinfonia. The biggest step in one's pianistic development is moving from a voice in each hand to adding a third voice and still having only two hands. Divide the piece into sections. Two voices at a time, one voice on each hand. For instance, soprano and bass, and soprano and alto, alto and bass. Two voices at a time. Alter the hands as you play three voices. Play three voices with one voice louder. That's not too hard, but play three voices with one voice softer. It's very hard. And as I was saying, always focus on horizontal connections. I would like to play some examples. So every single one it's like a department store of great training in order to become a good musician. So I cannot just pick out one, but it's just an obvious example. I want to show three examples. The E minor. So these, the third interval, you have to play by right hand with the legato. By the way, I didn't use pedal at all. And then comes 6, I would use the pedal a little bit. So naturally, you wouldn't, okay. Well, so at the argument of pedaling, sometimes or very often you hear performance like there's no intention of making legato, and they try to cover up by pedaling in each eighth note, and think it's legato. Then of course I would say reduce the pedal, but personally I'm not against of using pedal in Bach's music, but I always tell to my students that it has to be the way that nobody hears that you're using pedal. If you start using obviously like that, it's, I think, out of style. It's no longer polyphonic music. So, and the challenge, it's very difficult. The F minor, you have a chromatic line with a quarter note in the left hand. The making that line a complete legato is just so challenging. And then you really chase students into a corner and then let them listen carefully to make a legato. And it's really not how long it holds, etc., but it really activates the skill of listening. And the suspension, the G minor. This. This is so beautiful. But these elements everywhere in every single piece in this book. So it just giving symphony is a wonderful thing to young pianists. Okay, so next, helpful aids to accompaniment skill. So everything I show, you would make a complete circle with each other. And even that first one, the creating your own theme and accompaniment. And by the way, the young kids love doing that. And it's okay if it's not really making sense musically, that's not the purpose. And the harmony is off, it's fine, just 1/5, it's fine. But let them take initiative of listening carefully. I even do that to advanced students, and surprisingly many of them hadn't developed that listening skill, so it's very beneficial. So and everything would pay off when you play the beautiful repertoires. So Alberti bass, harmony, rhythms, arpeggio, pedaling, and chamber music. So Alberti bass, I was talking earlier, a Mozart 333. This is, it's a harmony. So you want to hold the left hand to create a beautiful harmony, and for that, good voicing is essential. And the 545 also. This is not. In Mozart, a lot of the times when he has this accompaniment, especially in a slower tempo, it's really the harmony that you want to create rather than bunch of notes. And the Chopin sonata, the B minor sonata, slow movement. So this is written half note, it's triplets, and half note and dotted quarter, and this is not, and quarter note, quarter note. So besides this gorgeous melody, he wanted us to create harmony, or I don't know what his intention was really, but obviously he didn't want us to play without legato. So that's how I feel about some accompaniment in the left hand. And yeah, the G minor ballad as well. Sorry. So it's all harmony. But if you don't hear the element of harmony or try to create the harmony, it often sounds like rhythmically correct, and it's staccato, but it's not beautiful. It sounds like playing cards. There's no really beauty there. And the rhythms, it's even improved the rhythms. So this, the fantasy impromptu, so this is not 4 against 3, 8 against 3, no, 8 against 6, but it's a polyphonic skill of listening the melody. That often, the student, very advanced student, can really move their fingers. They go, I don't know if you can hear with the pedal, but they almost neglect coming back, almost playing like that. So because they're not listening to sound separately. And also this like rhythms in harmony, the Judo by Ravel. This one in the middle. It goes at the F sharp and the C, which is the farthest key in the 5th cycle, but he put in the 1 harmony. It's like a huge conflict within. But if you play without really voicing each note, there's not enough tension there. It gets more kind of pretty this way, but all the notes, so it gets more rhythmical as well. And the arpeggio, like I was talking earlier, catching with the pedal, the Chopin Mazurka, opus 30, number 4. This is all. You have to catch the bass with the pedal. This is very challenging, yet it has to be soft. So all the things that we do will reflect into the repertoire. And that chamber music, this Schubert, B flat, piano goes and the violin, and often the pianist try to bring out the pinky again, and they don't play as an accompaniment. So that's very, very interesting. So, and the benefit of gaining good voicing skill. So this is ultimate benefit. Create good sound, gain finger control and strength. This was, I was talking about in an augmented interval. So you have a contact to the key and really try to make good sound. Understand the function of each harmony. This is not theoretic understanding, but in true meaning, how each harmony is functioning in the music. So if you start voicing well and start really hearing the harmony, you will start understanding. And then create colors, improve pedaling skill, help develop accurate reading. It's absolutely helpful. And they help memorization because you're really hearing all notes in a big chorus. Most importantly, like I was saying at the beginning, improve the skill of accurate listening. So that's the biggest goal and biggest benefit of doing all that training. So, and I would like to make a big remark here. The Bach Inventions and Symphonies is the art of gold by all means, not just beautiful artwork, but the contents to guide young musicians, young and old musicians, pianists are tremendous. I personally think, and I do, teach symphonies so intensely because if students understand the concept of polyphonic music and everything else that comes with it, every musical intentions in the music, then I do not need to teach Prelude and Fugue. They can play it by themselves. I'm so confident about it. But often that process is skipped. I really do not understand why one should rush to Prelude and Fugue when they're not really getting that concept. I think it's pointless. And from 3 voices to 4 voice is nothing, and 5 voices even. If you're understanding, if your ears understanding and can follow, that's not a issue at all. But from 2 to 3 is the highest hurdle to jump over. So I cannot emphasize enough that to really let them practice and try to achieve a lot of things with this wonderful textbook. I worship this book, and I've been witnessing many good examples how it works. So even the college students that I teach, they can play symphony. Many of them can play symphonia, and many people can play somewhat, but not understanding, not doing intentionally. Many things are just happening automatically, and this textbook will make us aware of that bad habit too, and fingering as well, and the legato technique and the approach to the key, and of course the hearing, etc. that I mentioned earlier. The benefit is huge. So that's what I want to make a conclusion here. And thank you so much for listening. So I will stop the share. Yeah.
Are we having a Q&A right now?
Yeah, I'm sure there were places that wasn't clear enough, or any questions I'm open to.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually have 2 questions. You talked about creating colors.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you teach your students what are colors and how do we create colors? That's my one question. My other one was on your inventions in your sinfonias, your Bach. which ones what would you start with for someone who's never done it before? Like, which one would you choose, and just how would you approach it and explain it to the student?
Okay. From the first one, the color. You can play the one harmony, for instance, in very extreme ways, two ways. To me, I don't know how it transfers through the microphone, but I was showing the example of this chord. To me, this and this is very different color. I don't know if it goes through the screen, but the first one I voiced the B flat and C sharp more intentionally, but the second one I kind of favored the top voice. So you can do that extreme way. Maybe bigger chord is easier. Like the un sospiro, maybe something like that. Does it make difference in sound through the screen? So like do very extreme way. And also, like, I think you're very right. Most of the students don't get it at the beginning. I don't think I got it at the very first time when I was introduced either. But I think that's part of it. It's okay if they don't get it, but you kind of repeatedly guide to the better way or to have a better judgment on the sound. I think eventually they start hearing differently. Or at least we can hope. Okay, then invention and symphony. This is very varies. It varies by the student where they are. But I like myself starting with the D minor, but under tempo. I wouldn't go fast, and I always divide. I didn't go too far, but the dividing into sections is important because our concentration span doesn't go that long, and you want to really make focus on the polyphonic line. So this is like few measures. And even the beginning, if they can't finish the whole piece, it's totally fine. That's not the purpose. I really do not think it's that important at that stage to finish the piece as soon as possible, to finish the complete in a way that they can present. It's more like learning the concept. But I'm sure that the parents' expectations, you give some other piece that it's not so difficult like Bach. And the E major is nice. It's not so complicated, but with the syncopation rhythms. And F major, of course, it's technically a little tricky, but slower tempo, that works. And G major, of course. Yeah, maybe G major comes after D minor. But then symphony is a tricky part. Definitely not the C major or C minor. I wouldn't start. I use this E flat major. This is relatively simple. There's not complicated line structure. It's a little bit more harmonic idea there. So I think it's easier to start. And then we got a very difficult. The B minor is good too. Technically hard with the 30 seconds, but concept is not too complicated. And A minor too. Well, everything is equally hard in Symphonia. So I just go with the section to section.
And what edition are you using that you like?
Well, I don't want to be stereotyped, but I like the Vortex. And I myself use henle. I
Great.
think those notations are very confusing for young students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the good question.
I think there's a question in the chat.
So should I read the chat? Do you have any idea how you can? Oh, okay. So, Lanzo, you mentioning about the last message, right?
Yeah, about
Okay.
the Bach recordings. Yeah.
Yes. This is a challenge that we all face. So I think doing the little fragment of it is helpful and kind of move quickly. I think trying to pin down the student who are not really into it, it's hard. But also, I also witness almost all the time when they start hearing it well, then they start saying, oh, Bach's music is beautiful. They start liking it. So that huge mountain there to climb up before they get to the point is tricky. You kind of have to go with a candy and whip. But the short section is always successful with me. And if they want to, it's a short section of this and go back to invention and a little bit of symphony and then go back to invention. And meantime that they playing other repertoire, like fun repertoire, something that easy to read and finish, and more harmony, variety, and so little by little. And playing the recordings, Brandenburg Concerto, it's quite impressive for young students and adults. The beautiful pieces. Also, the harpsichord version of it, letting them hear is also interesting. And the harpsichord is another thing that totally misinterpreted by modern pianists. We do not need to imitate that sound because we're playing on the piano, different instruments now. And on top, the harpsichord was played in a huge palace. It's like a swimming pool shaped palace. And Germany, if you go to the harpsichord cembalo concert, it's huge. The sound is huge, and they make dynamic differences, and they make legato with help of the huge reverb. And that thing we should put into. And if you play Wanda Landowska's harpsichord playing, she put a lot of notes and different registers, and the part of the improvisation there, and it's alive music. Students get impressed. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, Mina, I have a question just for my personal interest regarding the Impressionism music. Like, do you have any introductory pieces or repertoire we should do when we introduce to our students?
Impressionism.
Yeah.
There is a piece, 3 pieces by Poulenc. It's very nice pieces. It's Toccata is pretty famous, I think, but they're harmonically very, very diverse, and it's beautiful. It depends on the level. It might be hard for a very beginner.
Like upon which level?
Sorry?
Let's say upon which level the student or adult we should start introducing the
Oh, I really think for introducing the rich sound, variety of sound, there's no such thing too early, my opinion. I myself wish that I was introduced earlier. I think it's great to not to build a strong wall around young people's mind and in any way, not just music, but every way. So anything that they could handle, like Ravel's Four Hands Mamellois. My French is disaster. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. that Four Hands is gorgeous, and or the Forêt Dolly, for that's Four Hands, and Primo's, it really very beginner can play. It's mainly just melody duplicating in both hands, but the accompaniment is so colorful. So without having much pianistic skill, the four hands would be a good way to introduce the sound. Anything else?
Yeah, would you tell us the name of the Ravel four-hand piece again, the foray? Can you spell it for us?
Okay, ma mère, M-A,
Uh-huh,
mère, M-E-R-E,
uh-huh.
and accent aigu, equal, and O-Y-E, I believe.
Y-E.
I believe, I might be wrong.
Okay, and then the foray forehand piece, can you spell that for us?
It's Dolly, like doll was Y.
Can you spell it, please?
D-O-L-L-Y.
Okay, thank you.
So that piece is really colorful, wonderful pieces.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, if there's no more question, I would like to add the importance of listening orchestra works. Really, pianists don't listen to any other music. Really not enough. Orchestra player, other instrument player has chance to play in the orchestra, and pianists do too, but very little. And when they spend some time, they listen to piano music. I really think it's absolutely not necessary. So, but if you just tell them to listen, they never listen. Of course, the kids are busy nowadays. I understand. So I think it's worth to talk to parents and play 5 minutes and beginning of lesson together, and you guide them like, oh, listen to this. For instance, a trill that the oboists did in Vienna. I mean, both oboists are tremendous, but the grace notes, it's just so incredible, and I wish I could do things like that on the piano. So like if you introduce that way, they start kind of getting interested, and you sort of guide how to listen. I think it's very important for them, not just passively playing music, but going into detail. And also the video of the Vienna with Gergiev, it's so, the camera working is so nice. Every instrument comes in zoom, and they can learn all sorts of instruments with the sound of the supreme players. And the voicing, I didn't go too deep about that, but when the two flutes are playing and two clarinets are playing the third, like the beginning of the very opening of the first movement after the big brass theme, that's the flutes and clarinet, and then comes oboe in, and the sound changes, that gets brighter with the oboe sound. Things like that, it's so easy to miss if you're just passively playing music. So you can play with students and like, oh, listen to this, and maybe let them read the score a little bit. Its benefit is large. And I'm sure, I always hope for all students, I always have this like ambitious, like maybe he might become a singer, maybe he might get interested in percussion. So it's not just limited to piano. I think it's wonderful. And spend more time listening to other instruments and cultivate the sound within, and that eventually it will start happening to express, rather than we kind of, okay, play like oboe, or this is like this and play this way, that way. I think the time comes, it starts kind of founding out, and we just have to hope for the best that would happen. But it's really important mission for us. That's how I feel. So anything else? No? Okay, so thank you so much for having me again, and I hope something that I talked made sense and you find something helpful. And I look forward to meeting you again in some way. And thank you so much again for having me.
Yeah, thank